Well, we are finally in the last chapter of Daniel, and this is where we wrap up the vision that was given to Daniel that started back in chapter 10. And here we are again with side by side prophecies. There are two men on either side of a river. And what I believe this is a representation of two prophetic timelines, one that will end the Old Testament timeline and one that will end the New Testament timeline. In verse 1, we read that Michael will stand up for the children of Daniel's people. And we know that Michael has had a role of helping to deliver God's people out of Babylon back to the promised land. But Michael means who is like God. So that also refers to Jesus, who delivers God's people out of the world and into the promised land of heaven. This man represents the time of Antiochus, who rose to power just before Jesus' birth, his ministry, his death, his resurrection, and his ascension. And this man represents the time of the end times Antichrist, who will rise to power just before the return of Jesus. So we have the end of BC here, the end of AD here, separated by the river of life, Jesus. And in verse 7, we read that from the time of the scattering of the power of the holy people until the end is time times and a half, which is 3.5 years. And did you know that from the time that Antiochus desecrated the temple until his death was 3.5 years? And that the time for the end times Antichrist to desecrate the temple until Jesus returns is 3.5 years? Verse 11 actually gives the number of days, 1,290. But in verse 12, there is a different number, a higher number, for those who wait and make it through. I believe that these two numbers are a nod to an administrative end, a closing of the accounting books. 12 is the number of administration in the Bible, like the 12 tribes and the 12 disciples. So if we add up the digits in each of these numbers, we see that they both add up to the number 12, the lower number for eternal destruction and dishonor, the higher number for eternal life and honor. And this number is greater because the amount of blessing that these folks will receive is far better than the curse that these will receive. And this lines up with verse 2, which describes two ends, one to everlasting contempt and one to everlasting life. And lastly, you'll notice that out of the two men on either side of the river, only one of them speaks. That's because this one represents the then upcoming end of the BC era, before Jesus arrives on the scene. And the other man represents the end of the AD era, at the end of time. He is silent because it is all sealed up to the end, when many shall run to and fro, and knowledge will be increased. I hope that you enjoyed this Daniel series. I pray we all grow in more revelation as we approach the end of times. God bless you all.